So, welcome everyone to the second annual University of Washington Graduate Professional Student Senate Science and Policy Summit. The Graduate Professional Student Senate represents over 10,000 graduates and professional students here at the University of Washington Seattle campus. We advocate for students to the state legislature, to Congress, and also to the University Admission Administration on issues important to graduate and professional students. And we are involved in a number of advocacy efforts for graduate students, including funding for the University of Washington, tuition issues, and a number of other different issues that are important to students. To support those activities, the Graduate Professional Student Senate runs an annual lobby day where we go down to Olympia to represent graduate professional students and speak to as many different state legislators as possible about the issues that are important to us. But we also organize a higher education summit in the fall. We have a full-time presence in Olympia throughout the legislative session and run multiple smaller lobby days throughout the year. So last year, when we were thinking about the various different activities that we do as a graduate student government in order to be a place where students can come to talk about issues of policy that are important to them, we were thinking, well, there's so many issues in addition to funding for higher education that students care about and that's important to them. So in order to continue to build the GPSS as an organization where students come as their first choice, their first place to talk about policy issues that are important to them, we decided to start a Science and Policy Summit, something where science students could attend it and kind of use it as a forum to discuss science policy issues that they felt were of greatest importance to students on campus. So this year, in addition to the summit, we also started a presentation competition. That was held last week, and it was a great opportunity to see the really broad diversity of research that's done on campus. But in addition to that, what really struck me was that it was an excellent opportunity to see what great communicators graduate and professional students are. It was really some of the better presentations that I think that I've seen, and was an excellent opportunity and forum for students to practice communicating what it is that they're doing and talking a little bit about also the policy implications of their research. So, without any further ado, today we're having the summer. We're going to have two great panel discussions today. Our first is on science policy in presidential campaigns. And then our second one is on preventive and personalized medicine and bioethics. We'll be having that at 3:15 p.m. So today, at the panel we're having right now on science policy and presidential campaigns, we have two distinguished panelists with us. The first is Sean Otto. He's the executive director of Science Debate. He's also author of Fool Me Twice, Fighting the Assault on Science in America, which I believe recently won the Minnesota Book Prize. And was also the screenwriter who wrote the House of Sand and Fog, the movie The House of Sand and Fog. Our second panelist, Brian Baird, was formerly the congressperson representing Washington's 3rd District for over 10 years, was chair of the Department of Psychology at Pacific Lutheran University, and during his time in Congress also sat on a number of committees, including the Committee on Science and Technology. So I'll leave it at that and leave it to our panelists to share their thoughts with us on the importance of science policy in presidential campaigns. Thank you.
So I'm Aaron Katz. I'm on the faculty in the School of Public Health in Health Services and Global Health, and I have the pleasure of moderating this esteemed panel. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I teach public policy to students mostly in the health sciences, but from a variety of other places on campus. This is going to be fun. I have some commonalities with the two panelists. I mean, one is Brian was on the faculty. In fact, he was a department chairman at Pacific Lutheran University, so we share the academic pedigree. And Sean lives in Minneapolis, and I lived there for about 3 years back in the Pleistocene era, in the mid-1970s. So it's nice to sit on a panel with some people I share some things with. This topic about science policy or science and policy is complex, and when Colin invited me to do this, two aspects came up, and I'm not sure which one you guys are going to talk about, but I'll throw them both up in the air. One is just the role of science in politics. Okay, so this was sort of exemplified. I was coming down the elevator to at my building this afternoon to come here, and the manager in the building puts up cartoons every week, as well as a weather forecast. And the weather forecast for tomorrow is, I don't know, partly cloudy, et cetera, 63 degrees, warm. Now, 63 degrees does seem warm to us in Seattle. But if it was a colleague of mine from Khartoum would look at 63 degrees, would come to a very different conclusion. So there is the business of that science in and of itself is not how people view the world. That we view the world through lenses, through experiences. And that plays out in politics. Then there's the other side, the sort of science policy and the role that science plays, in terms of our budget priorities or federal priorities. I pulled out a blurb from Sean's website, and I think it's like this. It's what happens in a world dominated by complex science? And my first reaction to it is, I don't think this world is dominated by complex science. I think it's dominated by crazy views of the world. I mean, there is complex science, and of course we're governed by the science of physics and chemistry and all those things. But if you read the popular press, you don't get a notion that our public discussion is dominated by complex science, anything but. So I'll throw that up to you, and what we've asked is that each of them speak for 10 or 12 minutes, and then we're going to throw it open to your comments and questions. And Brian, you agreed to start.
Great. Well, you probably can hear me anyway. Does that sound okay? Thanks very much for letting me join you. I want to begin by commending this organization, the students who are involved with this. One of the challenges facing science, frankly, in my judgment, is the lack of involvement of scientists in the policymaking arena. We live in and I say we as a scientist because that's my background. It's in my DNA at some level, and I taught it. I taught our research methods class. I've published, and I chaired and sought the science committee when I went to Congress. It's kind of a backwater committee, to be perfectly honest. I was delighted to get appointed to it. Most people think, I can't wait till this is over and I can get on a real committee. True statement. But I think scientists are not often involved in the policy process, and when they are, they're not generally very effective for a combination of reasons, which maybe we can talk about. But I applaud this group because if you don't speak up, you won't get heard. The topic of today's overt topic, we can go any way we want as far as I'm concerned, but I'll address a little bit science in the presidential campaigns, and I'm going to put it in the context of the budget. I served on the House Budget Committee and have a passionate commitment to reducing our fiscal crisis. I wrote a book called Character, Politics, and Responsibility. A more shameless plug, I would hold it up, which you might find interesting. It's kind of iconoclastic from any side. But here's the situation. We are passing untenable debt onto our kids. The scale is unimaginable, and I want to put the debate in that context, and it is this. The debt already exceeds $15 trillion. The annual deficit exceeds about $1.2 to $1.5 trillion, depending on both how you measure the deficit and revenues for the year. To get that into context, and I used to, when people visit my office and ask, people visit your office and they ask basically for one of two things. Please spend money on something, or please cut my taxes, or both. And I would hand them a one-page summary of the federal budget, and I would say, well, here we go. You tell me how we do this. Here's the challenge. The deficit today exceeds all discretionary spending combined. Now, when I say discretionary, that means take off the table, and I don't think we should take off the table, but for discussion's sake, take the entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the debt, etc. I actually think we have to address entitlements and put all cards on the table. The only way to solve the deficit is increase taxes on everybody, not just the rich, because the math isn't there on just the rich. Increase taxes on everybody and cut spending on everything, virtually. Otherwise, you pass the debt on. So the question is, how do you do it? But to appreciate the problem, understand this. if we stop all discretionary federal spending, meaning no military activities anywhere on earth, immediately stop it, okay? Not just in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Close the bases, stop development of any weapon system, don't pay the soldiers, don't fire another bullet, stop it all immediately. Close the national parks, open up the federal prisons. Fire the Border Patrol, stop all scientific research and any federal funding for transportation. We're still in deficit. So when people say, oh, we're going to solve this by waste, fraud, and abuse, they're just lying, period. They're disingenuous at a minimum, and they're liars, probably more realistically. You can't do it. That doesn't mean you don't stop waste, fraud, and abuse, but it does mean it's not even going to come close to enough. Now, why do we need to understand that? Because if we don't get the deficit under control, we do pass these untenable debts on to our kids. And people will say, well, as a percentage of GDP, the deficit's been higher before. To some degree, that's true, although it's starting to not be true anymore. But beyond that, when it was true in the past, we were the strongest economic power in the world with no competition. There was no China, there was no India competing with us on a serious playing field. And the baby boom generation, which is now drawing vast amounts of capital, was in that time putting vast amounts of capital in. So we have a different competitive environment and we have a different demographic environment, and that's really problematic. How does this relate to science? Here's an existential challenge for us all as scientists, and it is sincerely an existential challenge and is meant as constructive. Basically, you get your revenue, if you take federal or state dollars to fund your scientific research, and many of you here do or will, you get that money in one of two ways. I'm oversimplifying here, but basically either a citizen believes in government, a republic form of government, where representatives make sound decisions and the agencies that are employed make sound decisions about how to spend the taxpayer dollars, and because you're a member of a community, you voluntarily give over the designated amount, and you entrust the people who make the decisions to spend it wisely. That's sort of one picture. An alternative picture is, no way would I give the federal government money or the state government money because I think they waste it, because I have better ways to spend it myself, because every penny I give to the feds or the state is money I can't spend on my kids' education, is money I can't spend on my car, my home mortgage, my health insurance, etc. And why would I waste that money that way? How do we get the revenue from those folks? Well, we tell them, if you don't pay us, we're going to put you in jail. We're going to put a gun to your head and take away your house and take away your car and put you in jail.